Hello students, how are you all? I hope you all are doing great. Today we are going to discuss in-text questions of NCERT of chapter The Fundamental Unit of Life. So let's see what is your first question. So your first question is, who discovered cells and how? Students, look, in this chapter we have discussed about cell theory, which was given by Sheldon and Shawn and further improved by Rudolf Virchow. Okay, and this theory states that all living organisms are made up of cells. Okay, that means including unicellular and multicellular organisms. Each type of organism is made up of cell. So that's why we can say cells are the building blocks of our body, of a living creature. Okay, and this become possible. We found out this fact because of Robert Hooke, who discovered cell in 1665 through his self-designed microscope. And how? While examining a thin slice of cork. Do you know what is it? Have you seen woody long trees? So cork is what? This is the outermost covering of tissues in woody plant, which is resistant, or you can say impermeable, of water vapors and gases, and later on it becomes bark of a tree. Okay, so he saw this structure. Look at this picture. This is the real image which was captured by Robert Hooke. And what you will observe from this picture? These tiny compartments. And these tiny compartments are referred as cells by Robert Hooke. Are you getting it? So, who discovered cell? Robert Hooke. When? In 1665. And how? While examining a thin slice of cork through a self-designed microscope. Okay. So moving to our next question, which is why the cell is called structural and functional unit of life. Just now we have discussed all living creatures, whether unicellular or multicellular, each type of organisms are made up of cells. That's why cells are known as the structural unit of life. And we know cell is able to perform all the life processes which are very important for the survival of a cell, like respiration, digestion, excretion, and many more. Okay, so cell is able to perform all these processes by own. That's why cell is known as the functional unit. Okay, that's why cell is known as the structural and functional unit of life. Now your next question is, how do substances like CO2 and water move in and out of the cell? Discuss. So students, in the previous session, what we have discussed? We have discussed that CO2 and other gaseous exchange take place with the help of diffusion, and water molecules exchange or movement of water molecules take place by the process of osmosis. And what is the difference between among these two terms? Diffusion is what? The movement of particles from its higher concentrated region to the lower concentrated region. Similarly, osmosis is what? Here, the movement of water molecules take place from the region of higher concentration to the region of lower concentration through a selectively permeable membrane. Okay, this is very important. You need to remember that osmosis is the special case of diffusion in which selectively permeable membrane is required. Okay, so this is the difference between diffusion and osmosis. Now let's see how CO2 moves by diffusion. Okay, I'm giving you one example. So this is alveoli. Okay, what is alveoli? Balloon-like structure present inside the lungs. Okay, so what will happen when we inhale oxygen? This balloon is filled by molecules of oxygen. That means here the concentration of oxygen become high. But suppose this is the blood capillary passing through the alveoli, and if we will observe this capillary, because here the present oxygen is utilized by the cells in their functioning, so here the concentration of oxygen become less. So what will happen? The movement of oxygen take place from its higher concentrated region to the lower concentrated region. That means from alveoli to the blood capillary. Similarly, as we know, blood is the transportation medium inside our body, so it carries waste material of our body like CO2. That means CO2 accumulates here in high concentration. And if we will observe alveoli, so here the concentration of carbon dioxide is very less comparatively to the blood capillary. So what will happen in this case? CO2, the movement of CO2 take place from its higher concentrated region to the lower concentrated region. That means from the blood capillary to the alveoli, and when we exhale, the carbon dioxide releases out into the atmosphere. Are you getting it? Are you getting this? In this way, exchange of gases take place inside our body by diffusion. Okay. Then next is H2O. Okay, so H2O diffuses by osmosis. Okay, and here cell membrane is must, because cell membrane, or we can say plasma membrane, act as selectively permeable membrane. Okay, understand osmosis. Let's take an example here. Suppose this is the system. Okay, this is the selectively permeable membrane. I'm writing here SPM for selectively permeable membrane. This is the A side, which contain pure water. Okay, suppose these are the molecules of pure water. Okay, and this region contains solution of salt and water. Let me take different colors so that I can show you. These are the molecules of solute. Now, can you tell me in which system water molecules are higher in number? In system A, because it contains pure water, and here in system B we have high salt concentration and low water concentration. And if we will observe system A, what we will see? High water concentration and low or no salt concentration. So, where the movement of water take place? From the region of higher concentration to the lower concentrated region. So, here the movement of water take place from system A to system B. So, in this way, water diffuses by osmosis through a selectively permeable membrane. Are you getting it? Now, moving to our next question. So, our next question is, why is the plasma membrane called a selectively permeable membrane? Students, as we know, plasma membrane is the outermost covering of a cell, and that's why it acts as a barrier which prevent entry and exit of the substances. But only some of the substances can pass through this membrane. That's why it is known as the selectively permeable membrane, and this property is very important for a cell, otherwise harmful substances enters inside the cell. Okay, and cells get rid of CO2 and other wastes because of this property. Because of this, CO2, water and glucose able to get transported into the cell. That's why this is the very important for plasma membrane to be selective in nature. Okay, now moving to our next question. Next question is, you have to fill in the gaps in the following table which illustrate the differences between prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. So first difference is already written here in this table, that if you will observe prokaryotic cell, it's generally small in size, and if you will talk about eukaryotic cell, this is generally large. Okay, then second is nuclear region is poorly defined. Look here students, if you will go through this term, you will see pro means primitive, okay, or early, and karyotic term is derived from the word karyon, which means nucleus. So we can say the organisms which have primitive type of nucleus are known as prokaryotic cells. Okay, so we can say here primitive means early type, that means nuclear region is not well defined here, or we can say poorly defined due to the absence of what? Nuclear membrane, and this region is known as the nuclei. You can observe this picture. If you will observe this picture, you will see here no membrane is present inside the cell, but the genetic material is scattered inside the cell without a membrane, and this particular region is known as the nucleoid of prokaryotic cell. So we can say here the nuclear region is not well defined. If we will observe this picture, first listen, U means true, and similarly karyotic words here derived from the word karyon, which means nucleus. So the organisms which have true nucleus are known as the eukaryotic cells. True nucleus means which have very developed nucleus. Nuclear region is very defined, and you can see here the nuclear region is surrounded by double membrane structure, which is known as the nuclear membrane in case of eukaryotic cells. Okay, so we can say in eukaryotic cells, nucleus is very defined with the external surrounded feature, which is known as the nuclear membrane. Okay, the next difference that we have is, generally in prokaryotes they have single chromosome, while in eukaryotes there are more than one chromosome. If you will take example of humans, so you will see here in humans 23 pairs of chromosomes are present. Next difference is because prokaryotic cell is single cellular organism. Okay, so they don't need specialized structures to perform particular function. But in eukaryotes, mostly eukaryotic organisms are multicellular, so they have complex body structure and they need specialized organs to perform different functions. Similarly, the cells of eukaryotes need to be specialized in function. That's why they have small specialized units which are known as cell organelles, which can perform particular functions. Okay, that's why in eukaryotic cells they have membrane bound cell organelles, and here in prokaryotes, these membrane-bound cell organelles are absent. Can you see any structure which is surrounded by a membrane is present here? No, except ribosome. But if you will observe the picture of eukaryotic cell, you will see nucleus, Golgi apparatus, endoplasmic reticulum, these vesicles, okay, all Ribosomes, these structures are surrounded by a membrane. So we can say membrane bound organelles are present in eukaryotic cell, while these structures are completely absent in prokaryotic cells. Okay, so these are the difference between prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. Now our next question is, can you name the two organelles we have studied that have their own genetic material? So we have two organelles, mitochondria and plasma cells. You can observe this through the diagram. Look here, these are the DNA of mitochondria and this is the DNA of chloroplast. Okay. Although these structures have their own DNA, but they can't survive on their own because they need more proteins which are synthesized by the instructions of nucleus. That's why they have DNA but they can't survive on their own. So now our next question is, if the organization of a cell is destroyed due to some physical or chemical influence, what will happen? In the event of any damage to cells and when revival of cell is not possible, lysosome burst and enzyme digest such cells. Okay, that means suppose this is the cell and these are the neighboring cells. Okay, so what will happen? Suppose this cells get infected by some of the pathogen or some of the foreign substances. Okay, so to prevent all the neighboring cells from the further infection, what will happen? First, cell try to revive itself. Okay, if it is not possible, lysosomes present inside the cell which contain several digestive enzymes lysosome present inside the cells which contain several digestive enzymes burst and digest the whole cell. Why? To prevent all the neighboring cells from the infection. That is why lysosome is also referred as suicide bag of a cell. Now our next question is, why are lysosomes known as suicide bags? Because as just now we have discussed, if cells get damaged, lysosome which contain digestive enzymes are able to digest whole cell. Okay, so in case of any damage, lysosome bursts and the enzymes present inside the lysosome digest their own cell. Therefore, lysosomes are known as the suicide bags of a cell. Next is, where are proteins synthesized in the cells? Where? In the ribosomes. Okay, that's why ribosomes are also known as the protein factories. And where you can find these ribosomes, if you will talk about eukaryotic cell, you will see ribosomes inside the nucleus, in the cytoplasm, and on the surface of ER, which is referred as RER, rough endoplasmic reticulum. So these are the reasons where protein synthesis takes place. That's all for now. In the next session, we will discuss the question answers of the exercise. Till then, thank you and have a good day ahead.